And we welcome you to Power Rankings, presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer.
Still going.
Still going. And we are here because of this man right here, the old Zeuser, Dan Hanzus. He pens the column that you read every single week at NFL.com. The Power Rankings updated every Tuesday. The show appears every Tuesday. And if you do not know him from that, perhaps you remember him from the play on the famous Sporting Pants Zubaz. Zeus Buzz was his attempt at breaking into the fashion world. Fortunately for us, it went belly up. So he is now the author
bust
of the
into
Power
the market. Could not bust into the market.
It was a heck of a try, though.
Yeah, it was in my mother's favorite store, Marshall's, but it just didn't connect with the people.
You know what? Maybe take another swing. Everything comes around. It's always a big circle, right? Especially when it comes to fashions. Speaking of circles, and by speaking of circles, we're not speaking of circles at all. Here are your rankings. 1 through 8, the Chiefs stay atop at number 1. No surprise. Patrick Mahomes, more magic, things you've never seen, plays you never knew existed, and they do it week in and week out. They had to do it again this week against the frisky Carolina bunch. But you see the number 2 spot there. Of course, the Steeler fan's going to be upset with you, Dan. But let's talk some Saints. We have not really kind of focused and honed in on New Orleans in quite some time and what they were able to do in front of a primetime audience against the Bucs.
Look at you still wearing those sunglasses, Hollywood. What a disgrace.
Your face. There you go.
Listen, we as football fans crave the new thing, the thing that we could get excited about. And the Bucs were that new thing this year, and perhaps they still are. Maybe they win the Super Bowl. It's a long year. But the Saints money are the team that everyone was ready to move on from. And Drew Brees, that narrative was at the front of the line earlier this season. Oh, he's old now. And you know what? He is old. But there are a few guys, and Tom Brady's one of them, and Drew Brees is another. Some of these all-time greats that it's just like not smart to try to count them out. I tried to do it with Brady a few years ago, and then he won MVP and won Super Bowls. Brees is the same way, and what they were able to do in Tampa was just an absolute butt-kicking, and just from coaching to execution to everything, the Saints proved themselves to me as a top 3 team with upside to go all the way.
Yeah, a lot to take from kind of what you just went through there. One, I think you alluded to it, where we had the Saints at the start of the season before any games were played, just looking at teams on paper, we said the Saints look like the best team, just front to back, special teams, coaching. This looks like the best team in the league, and I think they're starting to show that. They did it defensively. You mentioned coaching. We get excited about Kyle Shanahan, and we should. We get excited about shiny new things like Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, and we should. But Sean Payton's been one of the best play callers in the league for over a decade. He's got a Super Bowl championship on his resume, and Drew Brees is a first ballot Hall of Famer. And like you said, oftentimes you forget that, and we were reminded in a hurry. Sean Payton pulled out the Taysom Hill package, and man, it was effective. The Bucs had no answer. And I think one of the things to come out of this game was certainly Bruce Arians got his tail out-coached. I mean, just straight out-coached from the second that ball went up in the air on the initial kickoff until the end of this contest. The Saints were a cat, and the Bucs were just that little fuzzy ball, and they were just slapping around that entire game.
Absolutely. And the Taysom Hill package is something that football Twitter and the rest of the football cognoscenti, we had some fun with the Saints. Why do they keep force-feeding Taysom Hill? Well, because eventually Sean Payton is going to prove us all wrong. He was straight up tormenting Todd Bowles' defense in that game. And yeah, Todd Bowles' defense, Bruce Arians' game plan, Tom Brady's panic throws. It was a stunning performance from the Bucs in the game where Antonio Brown makes his debut. And Money, I guess it makes me wonder, without overreacting here, if did the Bucs peak already? And is this now going to be something where they've been exposed and they're in a lot of trouble now because we've seen their floor and it's way lower than any of us realized?
Look, I was one that puffed my chest out, and I felt like I was way early on the Bucs are the best team in the NFC. I felt like I did it probably 2 weeks before that started becoming a popular sentiment, and now I got to own it. And one of the things that I'll just quickly say about the Saints is they have now swept the Bucs. So as you do your power rankings and you're projecting for the playoffs and the Super Bowl, you're looking at a wild card Tampa team as opposed to a division champ and maybe first round bye Saints team. And that is certainly going to impact the power rankings going forward. But just kind of let's flip it to the Bucs. and I'll just kind of point out something that Bruce Arians said after the game, and our James Palmer pointed it out on Twitter, and you can see it here. Bruce Arians said that Mike Evans was open a bunch on Sunday. Quote, he didn't get targeted.
Whoa.
That's all.
Uh-oh.
Mike was open. And kind of, you mentioned, the Twitter cognoscenti, and when they start coming after someone, or they want to latch onto something, and they're latching onto, how dare Bruce Arians? How dare he go against Tom Brady? Well, maybe he's pushing Tom Brady because Tom Brady's got a lot of Aaron Rodgers, or Aaron Rodgers got a lot of Tom Brady in him, however you want to do that. They find their favorite target, and it is hard to crack that code. And for whatever reason, he's looking at Gronk on third down. There's no separation there. He's not looking at Mike Evans, who, what does he average? 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns a season. Chris Godwin isn't getting the targets. And that may be why they even brought, AB in, Dan, because Bruce Arians is just trying to find a target that Tom Brady trusts and is going to spread that ball around a little bit more.
Yeah, and when Antonio Brown entered the picture, Arians tried to deflect it and say, oh, this wasn't a Tom Brady-driven move. Well, follow the breadcrumbs here. Brown followed Brady to New England, too. So, yeah, I think there's something there for sure. And Tom Brady needs to start trusting these dudes. And the Gronk angle, that's another thing. Like, I played up a little bit too hard during the Bucs' long winning run for about 6 weeks there that, Gronk's back. He's not back. He's still can be an effective player in the red zone, but you see it. He's just not the same dude anymore. So Brady might want to cool it with the targets towards Gronkowski.
Especially on critical third downs. The separation just isn't there. Okay, listen, Bills Mafia, relax. We're here. Okay, it took us a minute. We just wanted to go through that Sunday nighter. It was a heck of a showdown. It set the tone for the NFC South moving forward for the remainder of the season. Now we can get to Bills versus Seahawks and the return of a Josh Allen performance that we saw the first 4 weeks, but had disappeared the last 3, Dan.
There you go, Josh Allen. I kept the Bills in the top 10 when people like, I don't know, I think maybe Money and then all these clowns on Twitter coming after me saying they shouldn't be sticking around in the top 8 because of the way Allen's playing. They haven't looked very good. And that's fair. Allen was not playing that well, but the Bills were keeping their head above water. They got the big win against New England. That was a slaying of the dragon, at least in the regular season. And now what happens? The good teams, they go through slumps, and then they win while they slump and then figure it out and then get hot again. And that's what I think we're about to see now because Josh Allen absolutely torched the Seahawks secondary. Quentin Dunbar, I don't know if that guy slept. He's probably having nightmares right now talking about trying to cover Stephon Diggs. So the idea of Josh Allen in a slump, absolutely. It lasted for a month, but that was the guy on Sunday who tore the league apart in September.
So I'm going to flip this the other direction, not because, I was critical of Josh Allen the last month, but because who am I to question Pete Carroll? But what are you doing? Like, what are you blitzing Josh Allen for? The last month, we've seen every single team that's taken him on rush 3, 4 at most, drop 8 into coverage, 7 or 8 into coverage, and he's got to find those tight windows, and he's got to work his progressions. And he's struggled to do that in every single one of those games, and inexplicably, they're in cover 0, cover 1. I don't know what the number was, 30-plus blitzes, and yeah, the stats might show that they got to him. This Seahawks team is so bad against the pass. And when you've got guys that can win one-on-ones, like Stephon Diggs, who's such a brilliant route runner and just ridiculous in getting in and out of his breaks and his stop-start ability, and then you got the speed of John Brown, why would you run that defense? I'm anxious to see how other teams are going to approach the Bills moving forward because, man, the Seahawks could not have played it any worse.
Yeah, well, there's a scarier idea at play here with Carroll and Ken Norton, the defensive coordinator. What if they knew they were leaving themselves vulnerable, but they figured we can't cover the secondary, so our only chance here is to blitz them to hell. And they did. It worked. That's the crazy thing. They had 7 sacks, Seattle, but they can't cover. And Jamal Adams came back, and he made a big difference near the line of scrimmage. But they need somebody that could cover because I saw Jamal Adams, and we saw it just now, chasing Stephon Diggs and other receivers throughout that game as well. There is some issues that I don't know that can get fixed before 2021. They're a flawed team.
Yeah, just quickly point out, you give up 2 ones for Jamal Adams. I know he can get you sacks, but man, he's got to be better in coverage because he just has not been his entire career, and you saw it right there on display on Sunday. So kudos, Josh Allen. All right, Bills Mafia, we love you. There you go. You're at number 6. When we return, the autumn wind is a raider. Trilogy just for fun. He'll knock you around and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won. I saw that firsthand Sunday. Where do the Raiders rank? We'll get to that when we return. Back on Power Rankings, presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer. Here we go, second quadrant, 9 through 16. And Dan, let's get started at the top. The Titans get a win over the Bears, but was it all that impressive?
No, it wasn't. But at the same time, they needed a game where the defense carried its weight. It's been an issue all season that had been covered up by Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. This time, they had the right opponent. The Bears obviously have so many issues on offense that even with the Titans having their issues both in the pass rush and in the secondary, it didn't matter. This game was a blowout. The Bears added some points cosmetically to make it look like a close game, but it really wasn't. So I give them credit for getting a big play, and there you go. You see the big acquisition at the trade deadline, Desmond King with a run back. But it was the Bears, so I'm kind of in a hold on whether I was impressed or feel good about them as a team.
Yeah, I'm there with you. And you know what? I think you said everything that I think. They showed the one sack from Harold Landry, the one guy that has a couple sacks this year. They're still not getting a consistent pass rush. That Bears offense is absolutely terrible. So hard to put any stock into that. But the good news is we got ourselves a big AFC South tilt on Thursday Night Football this week. Titans playing host to the Colts. This very well could decide the AFC South. Coverage gets going at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, followed by kickoff at 7:30 Eastern on NFL Network, Fox, and Amazon Prime. I'm going to just go down one spot in your rankings there, Dan, and get to the Raiders. It was the team that I watched up close in the stadium on Sunday as I call Charger games. I've been calling Charger games. This is my fourth season, so I have now seen, this was the seventh installment of Derek Carr quarterbacking the Raiders that I've seen, and it's the best, bar none, I have ever seen him. And by the way, he was 15 percentage points worse on his completion percentage from the season average and 120 yards fewer in passing yards than his season average. And it's still one of the best games I have ever seen because of this. Just using the run to set up the deep shots that he never took in the past. There's one to Aguilar. Now watch this. When this thing breaks down in the past, he's just looking for a check down. You know, people would always point out that Carr doesn't like to get hit. Instead, he's looking downfield now. And there's Hunter Renfrow with the big gain. That led to a Waller touchdown. And this is the difference. This is a Derek Carr that I have not seen.
Look at that
this
dude.
Willingness to sacrifice the body. If he does not jump, they don't get that first down. They settle for a field goal. They would get a touchdown on that drive. And there's just something different. I love teams with an identity, and this team offensively has an identity. They are huge on the offensive line. The interior of that offensive line, Hudson and Jackson, they can move, man. And when that running game gets on the edge, it's a road grader and look the heck out. And they set up the big plays with the personnel they've now acquired. I think this is a team to be contended with. Defense not good, but offensively they've been fantastic.
Yeah, and they're number 10 for the first time. They cracked the top 10 of the power rankings, and it shows you that they are going in the right direction. This Mayock-Gruden pairing, which was, felt like a coin flip when they first got together. But I think with Derek Carr, I'm with you, and I've been a bigger Derek Carr than other people in the past. You sense a trust gaining. Nelson Aguilar was a good pickup by Mike Mayock and John Gruden. He trusts him, and he's making big plays. Hunter Renfrow is a guy that you could tell he trusts. Ruggs is such a talented young player, and you're seeing him starting to make plays now that he's healthy. And then, of course, Darren Waller. It's not all just Darren Waller or a check down. There's more to this offense, and the running game, they're a physical running game, like you said. So there are things to really like about Vegas this season.
Yeah, I mean, that was a dime that he threw to Aguilar there. And by the way, that wasn't Josh Jacobs you were watching. That was Devontae Booker, because they didn't want to put too much of a load on Jacobs because he had those 31 carries in Cleveland and got the snot knocked out of him. And Booker just picked up where Jacobs left off. All he had to do was get to that edge with those big bodies moving. And it's just a different Derek Carr. It is. And I think that goes to show you, for all of the cliches, well, you'll never be able to figure out accuracy. A big arm only takes you so far. Guy's been in the league for 7 years, and he's different. He's managed to change the way he plays quarterback, and it is much to the benefit of the Raiders and specifically that Raiders offense. And now they're playing the division opponents here, the Broncos next, and then the Chiefs, an opportunity for them to really cement themselves as a playoff team. Speaking of coming on late and maybe kind of raising your hand, how about the Vikings?
Love the Vikings right now. I think every year there's one team everyone writes off in October, and then all of a sudden they're playing in January in the postseason. And I think the Vikings, despite putting themselves in such a deep hole with that awful start to their season, they have Dalvin Cook, who he's not going to win MVP because, running backs almost never do, but Adrian Peterson did on the Vikings 8 years ago, and Cook is having that type of impact where he just lifts all boats. And Kirk Cousins is the biggest one, because Cousins was a liability earlier in the season. He was on pace for 30 interceptions a couple of weeks ago, but now that Cook is taking over this offense and just absolutely running over teams, he gets the ball and it feels like he's running downhill. It helps Cousins so much with the play action, and all of a sudden you're seeing those more Kirk Cousins-like games when he's good, 270 yards and 3 touchdowns and no turnovers. Watch out, the Vikings with a schedule that is pretty good, forgiving for them, they might end up getting to 9 wins.
Yeah, and that's why I wasn't looking right at the camera, because I got it right here. Chicago, Dallas, Carolina, Jacksonville is what we're looking at. And like you said, there's always that team that makes the late run. And, you can say all you want about running games and running backs don't matter. Yeah, they do. Just look at what Dalvin Cook is able to do and how much different this Vikings offense looks.
The special
now
ones.
They have a potential MVP. Yes, the very special ones, potential MVP candidate put back into the lineup. All right, up next, we are told our mystery guest took on the taxing assignment of leaving the contiguous 48 to do a deep dive on one of this past April's draft most desired dudes. We dig into the Dolphins next.
What a hint.
Hampton spins the wrong way. Sneaks through. Tua!
Touchdown!
What a throw.
Ball comes out. Chuck Clark hurdles Phillip Rivers. Touchdown, Ravens!
Now Mahomes in motion comes back to the ball. Caught! Touchdown!
A.J. Brown with play strength to spare. Touchdown! Titans!
The race is on! And it's a loose! Touchdown!
Ball bounces around. That ball's
Oh, yes, that's no catch. Raiders win. The Saints pick off Tom Brady for the third time tonight. The Saints continue to make it look easy. It's too easy.
Josh Allen, that only took one play to cash in on Tre'Davious White. Amazing interception. Eric Ebron over a man. He was Dumbo the flying elephant. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 8-0. Oh, man.
Welcome back to Power Rankings, presented by Energizer. Still going. All right, Zeuser, let's get it on for our mystery guest. You say stop, and then I say go, go, go. So come on, let's go. Let's
go. Here we go. Here we go. No whammies, no whammies, no whammies, and stop.
Oh, look at that. It's the sage from St. Louis, uptown top ranking. Steve Weich is back to build our brains with football content. Steve, this goes back months, and the debut of Tua was 2 weeks ago, but the coming out party really was this week in that showdown against Kyler Murray. If you could just start there, as someone, I don't know if anybody in NFL media knows Tua and the family better than you do, and what you can share with us about his path to that point this past Sunday.
First down, unbelievable uptown rank and drop, classic reggae smash. Well done. I love that, Matt Money Smith. Now, when it comes to Tua, as you mentioned, I was there in Miami for the debut against the Rams, and the Rams were all over him. He really looked. It was his first time playing in a game in a year since he suffered that hip injury, and it looked like it. This week, an absolutely different story. Chan Gailey came up with a different game plan where they were really playing the perimeters than going upfield. But the thing that really worked well for Tua is early in the game, you saw some nervous mistakes. He tried to throw a pass away. It was intercepted. He gets lucky that the defender was out of bounds, and then he really regained his composure. And it really showed itself in the fourth quarter when the Dolphins had to come back and tie it, then kick the go-ahead field goal. He made some plays with his legs, incredibly accurate with his arm, but the way the players rally around him, and, this is what you've seen with, Joey Burrow and Justin Herbert. The way they're rallying around this young player really tells it all. And guys, it goes back to, Money, what you were saying. A lot of the people that I've dealt with around Tua, including himself, and that's with some of the great Polynesian football players, guys like Vai Sikahema and the throwing Samoan Jack Thompson, who was a third overall pick, I believe, back in 1979, coming out of Washington State, and of course Jesse Sapolu, probably the most respected Polynesian football player ever. And the things they tell me about how he handles family and his religion, but more than anything, making people around him better. He does not want to be the focal point. He wants to be kind of that Magic Johnson point guard to make everybody around him better. And you saw it in those moments. And in my dealings with Tua and his family, especially his father, Nalu, and mother, Diane, the humility in which they handle things is remarkable. And that's going to go a long way because Tua's going to hit some bumps in the road. And the fact that, he's on a high right now after this win, but the fact that he handled himself with such humility afterwards and really spread the praise for his teammates, again, that is going to go a long way for what the Dolphins are building. And right now, the fact that they're in playoff contention is remarkable and goes to show you what Brian Flores has done there in establishing a culture in South Florida.
It's kind of incredible, Steve, like where they've come, the Dolphins as an organization. If you think back to the beginning of last year, we were talking about them as one of the worst teams ever through about 5 weeks. They get better as that season goes along. They've now, looks like they've hit on the Tua pick, and they get the draft picks from Houston. The whole world is turned upside down.
Well, look at some of the free agent and veteran acquisitions they've made. I mean, Emmanuel Ogbah, the defensive end, was a player with the Browns. They were like, we've got to get rid of him. This guy's fourth in the NFL in sacks. He has a scoop and score last week. I think he had a strip sack that led to a scoop and score. This week, I mean, players like that, Kyle Van Noy, they found the right pieces that fit. And when I was actually down there last season for this crazy victory they had over the Eagles late in the year, they're like, we're taking a lot of heat from some of the talent we've gotten rid of. Players like Jarvis Landry and Minkah Fitzpatrick, guys like that. but they said we had to have players who had to be patient with what we're building here. So now they're adding to it. You talk about the candy that the Houston Texans gave him in the trade for Laramie Tunsil, their first and second round picks. Those are going to be high picks. So they're going to be able to add playmakers, which they don't have enough of right now to really compete when things get tough, should they get into the playoffs. But this is accelerated, and the expectation should be there, seeing the way that they're playing right now.
You know, when the switch was made or the announcement was made, Steve, there's been so much surrounding it. You know, it's a 10-week audition in case that Texans pick could be for Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. It's them just wanting to take inventory. He's been great in practice. From the folks that you've talked to, why did they make this move when they were already in contention with Ryan Fitzpatrick to Tua last week? What was the thinking behind that?
Okay, let's go back to a couple years ago when Alex Smith was with the San Francisco 49ers and Colin Kaepernick had filled in him when Alex got hurt. Jim Harbaugh basically said, we know what Alex is. He can get us to a certain point. We're going with the younger player to take us to the next level. Okay, so they didn't have the game experience to evaluate Tua much like Jim Harbaugh did with Colin Kaepernick back in the day. But the Dolphins knew from what they've seen in practice, and this is talking to some people with the team, even when he was running scout team, that this was a player, even if they were to take a couple steps back, that even in the later stages of the season, he was going to elevate them. And it wasn't just, the throws he was making or the fact that he was playing scout team, he was doing some positive things against the first team defense. It was the leadership aspect and the personality aspect where they're like, this is the guy. As popular and as well-liked as Ryan Fitzpatrick is, this is the guy who can galvanize us like nobody else and really take us to the next level with his playmaking ability, his youth, and all of the tangible things that we've seen on film and in practice. So let's go ahead and make the move during the bye week. Again, if we take a short-term step back, the long-term play, and long-term is not 2021, long-term is late November, December, that we're going to be better for making this change now.
Yeah, it was such a smart move because in the short term, maybe it would have lowered their floor, but it raises their ceiling. And now the reason we're talking about the Dolphins, why they're knocking on the door of the top 10 of the power rankings, is because now that there's just a little more juice to them. My final question to you, Steve, because you were embedded with Tua, you've gotten to know the family. Physically, coming back from the hip surgery, is this a guy that's going to become more explosive the further away he gets from that surgery on the hip?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dan, because you heard Tua say, after some of his scrambles, like, look, I'm not Kyler Murray. That's the slowest I've ever felt running. So he's not there yet. Plus, he's getting acclimated to the NFL speed. So that's part of it. He's going to get better. He's going to get healthier. And again, take into account, guys, these are his first 2 football games in a year. He suffered that hip injury exactly a year ago from now. So it's just going to keep getting better for him as, again, the physical and the mental aspects mesh.
Yeah, and I think anybody that's a fan of college football, they'll tell you, as twitchy and explosive and as fun as he is, I mean, the greatest attribute he has is his accuracy. I mean, the ability to deliver a football on the tip of a pin. It was like nothing I'd ever seen in college football, and darn excited to see it this week because he gets to do it against Justin Herbert, the guy taken right behind him, who's off to a pretty darn good start to his career as well. Do yourself a favor, procure the Huddle and Flow program from your preferred podcast provider. You've had Pat Mahomes in the past. This week you have Arthur Blank, and when it's you and Jim Trotter, Steve, there are no easy questions asked. That is a heck of a 60-minute program, and we cannot recommend that enough.
Mike, thanks so much. Yeah, we really go after Arthur with a lot of things. Does Raheem Morris have a shot? Some of the things on what he's looking for on his next GM and head coach, and we really tackle him being an owner on the diversity issues that the owners in the NFL have. It is an unforgiving interview, and Arthur Blank stood very, very firmly with a lot of the questions that he had to answer.
Awesome. It's great stuff. Be sure to check it out, the Huddle and Flow podcast. Thanks so much, Steve. And speaking of those Falcons, get a look at them right here. Number 19 in our third quadrant, 17 through 24. I got to believe the Bears going to be sliding out of there pretty soon. Sorry, Matt Tanton, producer. Chargers at 18, even though they have that 2-6 record, the worst record of the third quadrant. But let's focus on, I'm going to have a little bit of a disagreement with you here, Dan.
What?
Number 24, The Panthers. As you know, I am a big Panther fan. Love Matt Rule, the job that he did at Temple and Baylor, although that has no bearing on what he has done thus far with a 3-6 record in his NFL debut with the Carolina Panthers. I just like the way they play. I like the way he coaches. I like the way they play. They had a chance to win that game. Not saying that a 67-yard field goal from Joey Sly was going to go in, but this is what I'm talking about. You've just made your way into the league. This is how you beat the Chiefs. You got to take shots with fake punts. You got to take shots with unconventional plays on 3rd and 13 by running Teddy Bridgewater, who's not really thought of as a mobile quarterback and a guy that's going to use his legs to pick up yards like that. And that's one thing we see week in from week out. The wins might not be there, but the performances, the games are tight. And I think it kind of falls into that same category in your thinking of where you have the Chargers ranked. It's not the power standings, it's the power rankings. And when I look at that 17 through 24, if there was a head-to-head between the Panthers and any of those teams, I'm probably picking the Panthers in each and every one of those contests.
Yeah, I'm with you. I understand because the Chargers, based on their record, shouldn't be 18. And the Panthers are similar, where they're a team that's hasn't found a way to win games, but they're certainly exciting, and you like where the direction of the organization is going. So you hate when I do this, Money, but sometimes there are some second thoughts after I put the rankings out. Maybe I should have them higher, and guess what? It all gets worked out on Sunday because at a certain point they got to win a game. They're on a 4-game losing streak. And you got the Bucks on the schedule, and I know we just talked down the Bucks after a woeful performance against the Saints. But if the Panthers play the Bucks tough like they did the Chiefs, or even win a game, which they haven't done in over a month, they'll be shooting up. They'll be probably right around where the Bears are now, and they might even switch spots with the Bears. Let's be honest.
That's what I mean. Like that's the way. I guess that's what jumped out at me, right? Is seeing the Bears at 17. I'm like, man, if those two teams play, I am taking the Panthers all day, every day in that game. And quickly, I just want to point out more effusive praise for Matt Rule. And that is, when he was asked, Tom Brady after a loss like that, he is angry, and you don't want Tom Brady being angry. I loved his answer. Hey, we're angry too. We played the Super Bowl champs, and we thought we should have won that game. So how about us being a little angry as well? How about you tell Tom Brady that? Huh? How you like that?
No, I
love
love
the way,
that.
I don't care if the Bears already beat the Panthers. Don't care.
That matters. The Bears also beat the Bucks, so they've had a couple good wins. That's the only reason they haven't fully plummeted down. I love Matt Rule. He's a Jersey guy. That's what I'm all about.
Right. You know what? He should have been the coach of the Jets. But hey, you can't pick your own defensive coordinator. Sorry, had to put that.
Need Greg Williams in the building.
Yeah, got to have him. Just ahead, we proudly proclaim which team will emerge from the exciting NFC East. Yes, I'm being facetious. And perhaps more interesting, how many wins it's going to take to do so. Welcome back to Power Rankings, presented by the long-lasting power of Energizers. Still going. See that little QR code? Go ahead, pop that, and get to Dan Hansus's article at NFL.com. It's the fourth and final quadrant.
Post.
You see Joe Burrow's Bengals right there atop at number 25. But let's focus on, let's see, number 28, number 29, number 30, and not in there are the Philadelphia Eagles, who are way too high. I think they're sitting at number 22, as a matter of fact. But Dan, who is your pick? Which team would be your selection to emerge victorious with the NFC East crown?
I mean, I would be really bad at power rankings if I didn't have the Eagles as my pick.
That's true.
Since I have them a cut above. But of course, I mean, a lot of this is I've always been a Carson Wentz fan. So that's what this season has been so confusing. He entered week 9, leading the league in turnovers with 16, interceptions with 12, sacks 32, 31st in completion percentage, 29th in yards per attempt. And I ask Money, how? This is a talented guy who willed the team to the playoffs last year. He's not battling an injury that we know of. He has enough weapons to make things happen. He just has been a mystery. I think it's one of the great mysteries of the 2020 season. My thought here is that because of his talent, it can't continue for an entire season. He'll get better, and that will be enough to get you to about 6 or 7 wins, and that will get you a division.
I'm struggling. You can see me. I'm scratching my nose. I'm looking down because I told our producers that I'm taking the Giants here and I think it's just because this week is the showdown and I feel like the Giants are going to win. At the same time, I wanted the Washington football team to win that game so badly so I could take them. But it was a crushing blow. The injury to Kyle Allen, and then the picks from Alex Smith, and we all of course love that story. None of these teams are great. They are all bad. If you look at the rankings, if you have the Washington football team that's atop the league in defense, they're on the very bottom of the league in offense. The Eagles are great at slowing down the pass. They're terrible against the run. It is a flawed division, and I'm just going to proclaim whoever wins it will not have more than 6 wins. So that's my position. I guess I'm taking the Giants here, but they won't have more than 6 wins, and that was 2 minutes too much on the NFC East. And it's now time for Power Moves, presented by Energizer. She articulates acute angles, interprets integers immaculately, and is the premier predictive analyst in all the business. It is our Cynthia Freeland along to make sense of the nonsensical with math, building a case for some bubble buddies. What was that, Dan? Was that the...
She's number 1.
She's number 1.
Name it at the Orange Bowl, yeah.
She is number 1. So here we go, Cynthia. Teams on the bubble that you either believe or do not believe in, and we start in the NFC West.
All right, so we're going with the Rams here. And because of losses by both the Cardinals and the Seahawks this week, the Rams got elevated. However, I must warn, they do have 2 meetings left with the Arizona Cardinals. They have not met them yet, or the Seahawks, and they also have the Bucs left as well. So right now, it is all about that defense. They need to keep it so that there's not the opportunity for Jared Goff to have the game we saw against the Miami Dolphins. They need to keep strong, be good. We need to see that Rams defense that we're used to, not necessarily what we saw in that kind of weird game against the Miami Dolphins.
The old power rankings trick for the old Zeuser. If I have no idea what to do, stick a team at 13. I don't know if I know that I don't think they're great, but I think they're good. But I don't know the Rams are a tough team to figure out right now.
Very
I'm
bubbly.
stealing Twitter content here, but I wish I could give credit where it is due, so I will just say it's not original. Congratulations to the Rams. They would be first place in the NFC East right now, were they a member of that division. How about the Raiders? Let's stay west. Cynthia. Where you got the Raiders?
So the Raiders are a little bubbly too, and they right now are slated to make it, but you have to look at their schedule because they have some scary ones left. They have their rematch with the Chiefs left. They have the Broncos twice, and then they have the Colts. However, their schedule is favorable. Other than that, they've got Dan's favorite team, the Jets, to play as well, so that helps. And their offense is really the key to what's making them click. Derek Carr is having a great season, especially on those deep passes, and that is what kind of propels them into the next slot, into the playoffs. And it really will kind of come down to whether or not the Broncos beat them or not. This really going back and forth between them and the Broncos.
I'm with you on that, Cynthia. Number 10. I don't know how we got here. but the Raiders are a top 10 team. John Gruden and Mike Mayock, they're doing something right, at least according to the power rankings. I don't know what that means, but number 10 is a nice spot to be right now.
Yeah, we talked about a little bit earlier, just this is a great stretch for them, right, in order to take inventory, because Chargers, Broncos, Chiefs, they get these 3 divisional games in a row. They've already beat the Chiefs. They already beat the Chargers once. So great opportunity here for the Raiders, like you said, to not even be part of the bubble, but get off the bubble and solidify themselves as a playoff participant.
Well, we got one more here, and it's the Dolphins. And the Dolphins are my quickest, biggest riser, most surprising. I didn't think their defense was going to be very good this season. Their defense has totally broken the model. I'll be the first to admit it. But their schedule is super favorable for them, especially these next 4 games. If you look, it's Chargers, at Broncos, and then at the Jets, and then the Bengals. So if they can beat the Chargers and they can best the Broncos, this will be a situation where they'll head into the Chiefs with a lot of momentum, and they have a great opportunity with Tua. Remember last week we saw a significant increase week over week in how deep he was passing, the types of throws he was making. That's the situation where the Broncos and will again potentially be spoiler. However, I think the Dolphins do make it because the Patriots and the Jets maybe not going to give them too much of a run for their money.
I mean, why do you have to keep on bringing up the Jets like that, Cynthia? I know you're right, but you don't have to do it. That win in the desert against the Cardinals, Cynthia, that kind of opened up the horizon for the Dolphins, where they go from a fun little story to, wait a second now, I'm all in on you and the model here.
Oh, I like that.
I do want to acknowledge your besting of the Broncos, and I appreciate that. However, for future concern, maybe conquer the Chargers or chuck the Chargers is another one you could.
My favorite guy in the entire business is the guy who does the Chargers games. Just saying. So I don't want to put them down. I'll just stick to making fun of the Jets.
Never heard of them.
Move the sticks.
You can get all Oh, how dare you? You can get all the information at NFL.com/Freeland. That is FRELUND. Thank you, Cynthia. And when we return, we investigate a pair of impact intra-division dates and a compelling young quarterback inter-conference contest. Let's get to some impact matchups here as we welcome you back to Power Rankings presented by the long-lasting power of Energizer. We get a look at 3 games, Dan, not necessarily those that deserve to be highlighted on the schedule, but those that we think will have the biggest impact on what the Power Rankings will look like next week. And I'll get started with the Seahawks at Rams. Look, it's intra-divisional, and I think if the Seahawks lose, they're out of the top 10. If the Rams lose, they may slide as close to 20, as low as 20, I should say. You've had the bye week to get things right, the Rams have, after the misstep in Miami, where the two big concerns coming in were offensive line protection issues and inconsistency from Jared Goff. That was coming into the 2020 campaign. Those were front and center. The Seahawks defense has not just been beaten, but humiliated by passing attacks all season. 362 yards per game allowed is not just dead last, Dan. It's dead last by 52 yards.
Hamina. And guess what? The Rams coming off a bye. Sean McVay has had 2 weeks to game plan for the worst Seattle defense of all time. Yikes, that could go the Rams' way. I'm interested to see how that plays out.
And again, Seattle loses out of the top 10. Rams lose perhaps out of the top 20. I'm going to go Eagles, Giants. We just discussed it. Whichever wins this game will win the NFC East, I think. Defensively, the Giants are great against the run, horrible against the pass. Eagles good against the pass, not so great against the run. Offensively, they both stink. Giants 31st, Eagles 27th. This is why it's an impact matchup, because whichever one of these two teams loses, we shall strike them from the power rankings talk forever. Well, at least in 2020.
The dream is still alive, Money, for all four of the NFC East teams to be at the bottom of the power rankings. It could happen if the Giants find a way. And the Giants' defense has been pretty good. The offense gets the headlines and the struggles of Daniel Jones this year, but the defense has been getting better and better. Carson Wentz could struggle again.
And I'm going to wrap it up with not necessarily impact in the rankings, but just impact in our entertainment. It has been so fun to watch Justin Herbert every single game, even though the Chargers break hearts for those that are fans of this team. It's must watch. And Tua, in his first real game, that first one, the defense staked him to that big lead, so he wasn't able to really beat Tua. But man, you got to see it last week in that showdown against Kyler Murray. And I cannot wait to watch he and Herbert duel it out. And by the way, now the Dolphins are expected to win. They weren't expected to win against the Rams. They said they would take their lumps. And instead, they won both of those games. They are expected to beat a 2-6 Chargers team. Let's see whether or not they can respond, and Tua can live up to that.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's a little bit of expectation for the first time this season. But yeah, how fun is it? Yeah, we got Tua Kyler last week. Now Tua Herbert. Right. This is the future of the NFL. These young guys are going to be stars for years, and it's just starting.
I know I'm biased, but I don't think there's a game I'd rather see this week than Dolphins, Chargers, and those two young quarterbacks going at it. Let's do honest assessments, Dan. You take quick inventory of a couple teams that we have yet to discuss, and we go all the way up to the top. Number 2, the Steelers, and what you made of their interesting outing against the Cowboys.
Yeah, every team gets a pass for one ugly win, and that was what the Pittsburgh Steelers got against the Cowboys. That was almost a total disaster, but I like the toughness of Ben Roethlisberger in this game, throwing 3 touchdown passes on 2 bad knees. Both knees were jacked up in this game, and you have to like Minka Fitzpatrick, what he's been bringing to this defense week after week, especially in this game, breaking up a pass in the end zone to seal a win for the 2nd straight week.
All right, how about the Ravens? Stay in the division there.
Nice performance by the defense. The Colts, I think, are limited on offense, but you got to give credit. Baltimore's defense is going to come to play almost every week, but Baltimore's offense still is an issue to me. I think they had about 50 yards in the first half of this game. They got better, put up over 200 yards in the second half. But do I trust Lamar Jackson in a big spot? I don't right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, the one good thing, I guess, was they had to come from behind. Now, granted, Jonathan Taylor doesn't fumble that ball, and it just seemed like all the momentum was in the Colts' favor, and that one play changed everything.
What about the Marcus Peters interception? How do you call that?
Yeah, exactly. Out of bounds. I mean, it's just so odd. It was such a weird game, so I'm with you. Give me one more week before we really kind of measure what the Ravens are. All right, when we return, here's a little taste. We advertise your insults. Your concerns are considered. The compliments to the chief ranker in charge, the old Zeuser, will be shared like this. The Bills destroyed Seattle and were only 6. Easily a top 5 team, Dan. How dare you not have them in the top 5 at number 6? Come on, dude.
Bills fans will never be happy, ever.
One last installment here on today's episode of Power Rankings. That's what I'm trying to say. At Hanzu, seriously, what are you going to do when the Dolphins beat the Raiders in a couple weeks? Keep them the same? And really, they beat the Cards in a crazy game, and you elect not to move them one more spot above the Cards. Explain. Ooh, that rhymed.
What, the hashtag get on board? Is hashtag
Right?
get on board a thing? How about you get an avatar, you egg?
Wow, that was the insult. Your comeback was, how about you get an avatar? And I don't think they're eggs anymore, right? It's like a silhouette.
I don't listen to people that don't have avatars.
All right. Thankfully, we've got more people to keep us company, except Steve. This is from Jerry. How the hell do you figure this out? It sure isn't winning. The strength of schedule. Bills should absolutely be over the Ravens.
There you go, Buffalo fans. Again, they're never satisfied.
Yeah, they are.
I enjoyed the Bills' performance this week, but they have not been a perfect team either over the last month. They're very close. They're very close.
Yeah, it is interesting how the Bills fans were quiet for 2 weeks and now they're back.
Exactly.
Oh, this is good. You know what? A perfect way to put a cap on today's installment of Power Rankings. Jet's still too hot.
Hilarious.
Hey, Dan, you be nice. Tell your enemies, tell your rivals, tell your critics, tell your haters. Power Ranking shows up right here every Tuesday at this time. We'd love to get you back with us next week. Until then, happy autumn, everybody. Nice exit, Dan, you dork.